All right, Greg Martelle coming to you live from the subarctic, where it is dark, and hey, we lost somebody. Erika, way to go. Way to go. Coming to you live from the subarctic, where it's dark and cold. It is currently -5 Fahrenheit, so not too bad. Today we have Lass McMaster, Elaine Bateman, and when she comes back, Erika Everest. So where are you coming to us from, Lass?
I am coming to you from Larne in Northern Ireland. Costa del Larne.
Is it dark there?
My room is dark. It's dreary and raining, yes. It's pretty miserable. Yay, she's back.
I'm blaming you, Craig. You kicked me out.
Yeah, he said don't say the B word and then Erika just left.
I had nothing to do with that. Did you tell us where you're coming from, Elaine? I was trying to...
I'm in the Midlands in England.
It's almost like midsummer there.
It's hideous. It's hideous and dark and depressing.
It's rainy because it's England. Oh, hang on. Let me hide that stuff there. Let me do these things here. Where are you coming to us from, Erika?
From Dublin in Ireland.
That's great. That's great. And do you have rain there? Does it rain a lot there?
We kind of consider ourselves the Pacific Northwest of Europe.
So I'll take that as a yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
And today we wanted to talk about some new authors getting set up. Elaine has currently has signed a recent contract and started publishing with an indie publisher with LMBPN. Erika has just released her first book, and Lass has just survived her first year, and that second year is looking up. So let's talk to Erika. You just had a release, and you've been working on that for, I'm saying, at least 3 years, getting set up to release this book.
Yep. So I started back in 2017, around Nano 2017. So it is 3 years since the first book in that series when I started writing it. But I had this idea, 20 books in May 2017. So I had that sense of the group dynamic, what works, write a series.
Oh dear. Come back.
Internet sucks in Dublin. I thought it was... All right, Lass, you've had your first year, and you just also signed a contract with an indie publisher for a next series of books. Talk to us first about how you set up that first year. I know you came to 20 Books Edinburgh. You sat right across from me in the nonfiction small room, but then you fleeted over to the romance room because we are having way too much sidebar conversations in the nonfiction room. And come on back, Erika. And way too many conversations. So you went over there, and something triggered, and all of a sudden you took off like a Titan rocket.
So I originally had got a ticket to Edinburgh and almost talked myself out of going. And the imposter syndrome kicked in, and I'm not a real author, and you kind of talk yourself out of all this. And then I got to Edinburgh, met some people in the nonfiction room, and it was actually in the retreat section of the week in Edinburgh. My laptop broke. So in true dramatic romance author style, I stormed off in an almighty huff and told my husband to book a flight home because there was no point in being at a retreat that you write if I didn't have a laptop that worked. So I stormed out and I flounced around the castle like a damsel in distress, and I bumped into Mariah, the cover designer, and she was just walking around having a look at things, and she sat down and we got talking, and we started talking about covers. And she said, show me your covers. So I showed her my first cover, which was due to come out that September. And I said, I think it missed the mark. I had a feeling that it wasn't in line with the genre. And she said, yes, I think you're right. So while we were sitting there talking about how my cover had missed the mark, Mary Mayweather came out of the romance room, because I had gone in and I had said to Nora, whenever you get a break, it's hardcore in the romance room, right? They were doing sprints and it was all quiet and everybody was focused. So I kind of whispered to Nora, whenever you're finished, can you come outside and have a chat with me? So in the meantime, Mary came out and she started talking to Mariah and me about author brand and setting yourself up for success from the beginning, right? You want people to know from looking at your whole series of books who you are and what you are. So she asked me like, well, what is your brand? And I was a bit like, well, I don't know. I haven't written a book. I haven't finished.
Did you have any? You had no books at that point in time.
I
right?
had one written,
okay.
but it wasn't published.
Okay. Okay.
So at that point, all I had done was I'd read your nonfiction books, the indie author series, and I had, excuse me, come up with a plan to. Everybody had been saying, back matter. Your backlist is where the money is, right? Your backlist matters, and I didn't want to be an author with no backlist. So I had decided at this point to focus on my first year being putting together a backlist. So I was writing like a crazy person, and I planned 2 rapid release series of 3 books per series in that first year with 2 novella like epilogues as well, to create a backlist. Because everyone says, go and learn the ads, go and do this, but unless you have something to point people to, there's really no point in doing that step. So my first year has been about creating the backlist. So Mariah pointed me in the right direction with my cover, and then Mary came up and she was like, look, you need to identify yourself as a strong brand from the get-go. Don't flounder around with it. Come straight out with it. And I don't think either of these women knew that they were helping craft my entire career at this point, or my business. They were just having a conversation in the corridor, right, with some girl who was pretty annoyed that her laptop broke, and she was like ruminating anger at this point. So Mary talked to me about categories and keywords. I know a lot of authors are protective of their own data. She talked me through what she put in her. She's a sweet romance author versus me being steamy. And she guided me along the path of, well, who do I want to be as an author? So Mariah helped the covers. Mary helped with the brand. I wrote like a crazy person and set up some rapid releases for my first year. And then I wanted to do the rapid releases before I had a huge fan base, so I didn't set up expectations incorrectly for people. So if I put them all out quickly in the first year and I didn't have that many people actually reading it, then nobody would expect 10 books next year as well, right? So I wanted to get everything set up ahead of time. So now I'm at the point, my current series, I'm releasing once every 3 months instead of once every 4 weeks.
Nice.
But nobody expects me to release every month because I've already got the backlist sitting there waiting. I've started my advertising.
Fill in between your releases. Like, hey, if you're new to this series, oh, by the way. Yeah,
exactly. I'm doing some short stories for some anthologies in the meantime. One for you. I did one for Kate with Hellcats. So if they want some new stuff, there's some new things coming out, but it's not like a whole series, so there's not as much pressure on me. And then I can start focusing on the advertising of things like learning Facebook ads, Amazon ads. So I can point new people to my books, and there is a backlist for them to find. And when they do find me, my brand is strong and they know just to look, this is Lass, this is her thing. So that's been my plan.
That's great and well executed. We'll talk about your new contract and your new books in a bit. Let's get back to Erika now that you're here again. Your first release, how did you set up for that? What did you do right setting up for your first release?
I had a great cover. I had an idea of what I wanted. I went for the designer I liked best and, got that way ahead of time. More ahead of time than I intended because I thought I'd be releasing an awful lot sooner, but life got in the way. And I set up my mailing list in advance. I, again, didn't expect to have it so far in advance, but I had 15 months of newsletters building that mailing list before I released the book. So I had a group ready to release too, who had stuck with me through 15 months, so obviously they didn't hate me. That made a good start. And I set up a reader group as well. And actually it was Edinburgh as well that made that happen. I was in the fantasy room, loads of game lit people thinking, I don't know if I really fit here. And someone asked, oh, what do you write? I'm like, well, I write fairy tales. I do too. I'm like, really? And that's how I met Angela, A.G. Marshall. And she and I write very similar books. I saw her cover, one click bought the book, read the book when I should have been writing. And then I asked, like, do you have a reader group? And she said no. So we agreed to set one up together because I didn't have the following. I put in the work in terms of setting up the group, doing those initial engagement posts, building the content so that there was something for people to come to. And, you know, she spread the word with other established writers in the genre. They came in too. And yeah, it's now like 250.
Oh, no.
Let's imagine it was going to be 250,000 members.
Hang on just a second. We got her back already. Hang on. All right, just
I
keep
don't know
going.
what my computer's doing today. I'm really sorry, guys.
That's okay.
So yeah, those are the things I did in terms of setting up a launch to be successful, to have an audience to launch to that were cultivated. And then, you know, but I think the biggest thing I did right with my launch is I actually pressed the button and damn well did it. I write slowly. My speed is about a book a year. That's what I can do. But I want
you have a full-time job.
Yeah.
You have a full-time job. It's not unrealistic.
I've been stockpiling books for 3 years. That's like, this book was actually written 2.5 years ago that I've just released. But I was writing the second book and the third book. The plan was to have them all written, and then when it was all perfectly written, everything was perfectly aligned, and then I'd learn all about advertising, and before I'd start anything, I'd have everything lined up. And I got to the start of this year, and I was looking into going to Vegas again, still nothing published. I'm like, I can't do this again. And I just decided I was going to publish this year, and I put up a pre-order, and that kind of locked me into it, and I just decided, yeah, I could make this happen. So book 1 is out. Book 2 is on pre-order, is coming out at the end of December. Book 3 will be out next spring. And kind of, it's not written yet, book 3. It's only halfway there. But there's a deadline now and it's going to happen. Whereas
Good.
I could find excuses to avoid it forever otherwise. So sometimes
now
you just have to do it.
Now you've got a book out there and building that readership. Elaine, you published a while ago, but it's been a while in between your books. And now you've recently published a number of books quickly.
Yeah, my first book took 3 years off and on, more off than on. The second book took a year, and the third book took, I don't know, maybe 9 months, something like that. And then in between books 2 and 3, I went to 20 Books Bali, and shoved a piece of a manuscript into Michael's hands and ran away. And he read it. Oh, it was tragic. And he read it and liked it and called me a couple of weeks after we got back from Bali, and we bounced ideas around for a while, and then he sent me off to do the thing. So
now you've got 4 books published, right, with through LMBPN?
Yeah, I'm just over halfway through book 5.
Okay, good. Rocking and rolling, learning the biz, building the backlist, and even though the huge revenue wins maybe don't have those, but have consistent monthly and that ability of readers who pick up book 1, because I saw you offered Fade for SPF for the Hello books. So that's you have a book 1, but now you have all these other books behind it. So you can offer a book for free. So that's by building your backlist, which kind of what Erika did. You have 1 book out. Of course, you're not going to put it for free or put it on sale right away. You want to have other things that they can get into at full price, because if you want to make money in this business, 99 cents is cool, but that's just a tasty sampler at the grocery store. You need people to buy the product at full price, and that's by getting fans. And you guys took your time to write a good first book. It's not just get any piece of shit out there. And I did this with a short story that I was giving away for free to bring readers into my newsletter. And it was just hey, I got this extra story, let me throw it out there. It wasn't really my brand. It wasn't normal. It was comedy. I mean, it's a good story. It's fun. but it wasn't me. And when I finally came up with a full book that was a standalone, that was science fiction with thought, with some philosophy, with some justice, then, hey, that's it. And now my list is growing by 500 people a month offering this book for free, but because I have that, not because I have any, and I have other stuff for them to buy. The short stories, like Lass had said, hey, submit to a few short stories. And these become gold. I have like 25. I give almost all of them away. I don't really make money off my short stories, but I make a lot of money off my short stories by bringing people into my universe. Because I have over 100 books published. I have over 20 series. I have 20 series now. So I have all kinds of opportunity. And a lot of that is co-authored, but still my books, it gives people an opportunity to come into my world. 5, 6, 7 free things. It's like, okay, hey, but if you want to read the real stuff, then you got to pay for it. So those opportunities. Lass, you're currently honchoing, Lass and Erika and Mary, the Sweet Romance anthology that we're going to publish in December. And then also the Steamy Romance anthology that we're going to publish January, February-ish. Right now it's scheduled for February 14th, but I think the stories are going to be ready well ahead of that. So we'll get it out early because, hey, no sense sitting on money if we don't have to, because it'll earn. The Steamy and the Steamy group, we do have some fun over there. I might be embarrassed, but I'm not. Because who else? None of you shared a picture of a naked man riding a camel.
Yeah.
You're right, we did.
Elaine is looking so confused.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here thinking, why am I not a member of this group?
Really do.
I'm in the Sweet group.
Yeah, you need to join the Steamy group. Even Mary's in the Steamy group.
Yeah. That's. I felt bad because I used the word ass in a Sweet Romance story that Mary read, and I felt bad. It made me feel bad. So, but now those romance anthologies. One of the things, we have some significant headliners. We actually have the #1 indie author in Sweet Romance, in Western Romance, who is a member of that anthology, of the Sweet Romance anthology. So we have a number of people who have almost no stories published, but they have earned their right way to get into this anthology. We've had over 100 people submit to each. It's a huge number of people submitting, and they're getting feedback on their first 500 words, their final stories. They're getting more feedback and helping them be better with this narrow genre. Keep in mind, don't throw mud at the wall. Throwing mud at the wall is kind of okay, but it's time consuming. You'll be disappointed a whole lot, and not a lot of the mud will stick. So if this is your genre, these are the things you dive into when you find an anthology. Especially our anthologies, there's no buy-in. It's you submit the first 500 words, so it's not a huge time commitment. If your story is off and people say, no, this one we're not going to do it, then you haven't invested a lot of time. It's not like, hey, submit a whole book and then we'll review and see if we're going to include you. No. So if you get your final story, you write that, you submit it, and then the readers say, no, this isn't really hit. It doesn't do it for us. Well, then now you have a full short story that you can do with whatever you want. And if you do make it in, then in 3 months you'll have a full short story that you can do it with whatever you want. That's the one thing about our anthos is you get your license, you get your rights. So, and to always try to, but I only write novels. Hey, it is a great writing exercise to try to narrow your focus to a single event, maybe a single character doing something, doing all of the elements of a story, the start, the conflict, the resolution, all of that in 6,000 to 8,000 words. That is cool. It's a great writing exercise, and that's why I love writing short stories. So I always ask. Hey, people ask me if you want me in a short story. You want a short story from me because I like writing them. I even tried to write a romance one, but I missed a lot because I don't read romance, so I don't have. Bye, Erika. That's because it's taking your head. That'll learn you. It'll learn you up good. Yeah. So, but So I wasn't in my lane, so I got rejected. No, I'm not going to let you join. You're going to wait down there now because you shook your head at me. But if it is in your niche, then absolutely you want to, because you want to see. You get access to all these other readers, because one of the requirements in the AMP, there's no buy-in. You do get an advance on your royalties, but you get access to all these readers. So you want to put your best face forward, because imagine if you have that story, it's a short story that other readers like the number one author in sweet Western and Western romance. All her readers are going to say, "Hey, a short story, sure, I'm gonna look at it, even if it's Kindle, and that's fine. Go in and read it, check out some other stories," and they see yours and say, "I love this." Imagine what that will do for you. So this Anthos, anytime you can bring people into your world, and you've heard the authors here talk about building that backlist, how important that is, because that's a long game kind of approach to the business of being a self-published author. I've talked way too much. What do we need now? Let's talk.
I'd like to say actually just about the anthologies. One of the things we're looking at is how to go beyond. So when you have a short story, what do you do with it? We've got an awful lot of first-time authors or first-time in this genre authors, and their stories are amazing. But how could someone find out more about them? They're setting up mailing lists. They're getting their author pages set up. And we're giving tips for story structure in short stories, how to set up a mailing list, where to get good cover design for when you have your story back and you want to release it as a standalone, whether for sale or as a reader magnet. So we're trying to do more with these groups than just give us your words and go away. It's trying to build a community, because it's all about finding the people who'll have your back, who'll support you through it. When you're struggling and you have that question, there's someone else who knows exactly what you're talking about, because they're your tribe, they're your writers. And that's why we didn't want to mix things up. The Steamy anthology came around because we realized, hang on, sweet is narrow, and there's all these other stories, and we can't put them together because it will just completely mess up the also boughts, the readership. It will upset everybody. We need two anthologies. And that's why we're doing two.
Yeah, because sweet and steamy, as I've discovered, are kind of different.
I think what I've learned through this process is even sweet authors don't really know, like you were talking about niches there for a minute. A lot of people are finding their niches through this process, right? So we're not asking for money, and people aren't just throwing their story at us, and we are giving them feedback. So there's one in particular who applied for the Steamy, and she got top marks from everybody, but we thought it was just a little too steamy for what we were going with, right? So we gave her feedback and we said, if you tone it down a bit, absolutely you could be in our anthology. And she said, that's not my brand. My brand is this. If it doesn't fit, then this isn't the right anthology for me. And I thought that is huge self-awareness by this author, that she, with this feedback, went, not for me. And people often try to cram themselves into books like this for that reason, because, hey, I'm going to get money from this. I'm going to put my story out. And she could have done that, but she chose not to, for her own brand and her own business. And I think that's very important to note, that this anthology is different, or these anthologies are different in that regard. We're not just taking everybody and saying, here, put a name, 20 books behind it. It's, you have to be in this lane across the board. You can't just crowbar your story into this book for the sake of it. You've got to know your brand. You've got to know yourself and your readers. And then we run with that.
It's a all added bonus. Not a lot of anthologies give that kind of feedback. And then the thriller one, I'm struggling a little bit just because of time to give that same level of attention. But you guys are doing great with the steamy and the sweet. And then, of course, I expect the urban fantasy for next summer to have a similar kind of approach.
And paranormal romance.
And keener. Yeah. Because it's important. The opportunities, because of going to conventions, and we'll say 20 books conventions because they are by far the coolest, and I'm biased on that. Elaine was able to get a contract and publish with an independent publisher, and takes a little of the marketing pressure off you. Alas, same thing with you, that you expect that when Muonic Press publishes you, that you will also have some of the pressure off your marketing. But learn some of the marketing elements in order to take your own self-published brand forward. It's not, and this is one thing that I emphasize. It's not that you have to love every part of this business, but you do have to do them. So don't be afraid. And like signing with an indie publisher, it's you get no money up front. It's all risk, your time for the potential of getting revenue later, and royalties. And royalties pay quickly, much quicker from indie publishers than they do from trad publishers.
Yeah.
I waited 9 months after my biggest month, and I hit all the lists and everything's cool. And 9 months later, I got my money. That was kind of cool. And I bought a truck. So it was cool. Just cool 9 months later. But Elaine, signing with LMBPN, what kind of things did you commit to when you signed?
To write 9 books with Michael.
So it was nine. You committed to 9 books, okay, and you got your 5th one coming. And the time frame for that?
Well, originally there wasn't. I was quite lucky. There wasn't a time frame. They omitted it from the contract, which turned out to be quite lucky for me because life got in the way and everything became quite chaotic for a while. But unfortunately, they saw their error and have since fixed that. So every time I've written a book and it's gone out, at that point I have to commit the next date for the next one.
Okay, that's reasonable. And I usually add a month or 4 to a contract and then just deliver early. What about you, Lass? What kind of things did you commit to doing?
So mine is slightly different in that mine came about through the Hellcats anthology that Kate arranged for a fundraiser. So originally it was just submit your short story, 8,000 words. We're trying to raise money to help this old lady save her home. And I submitted my short story, and then Hellcats was published, and out came the idea that they were going to do a 6-book series in a genre I don't write, post-apocalyptic series, and they were going to continue this as a fundraiser. All proceeds were going to go to help this old lady. So what we had to do was submit a chapter for Kate to read, give you feedback. We had a quick turnaround. There was a series of like short tests for you to do. So can you get feedback in 12 hours, do the changes and send it back quickly? Can you take your feedback without being dramatic about it and getting all uppity about your words? Like, it was just, because it was in a short space of time, it was just bam, 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 bam. And honestly, I didn't expect to get as far as I did. So they had so many good authors submit that they're now doing 6-book series instead of 1 6-book series. So originally I did it with no expectation of getting any royalties. It was just for charity. It was going to be a 6-book co-write with 5 other authors, and I wasn't going to get anything from it. It was just to learn from Kate, to shadow like the coaching, the one-to-one coaching from Kate, to learn from another indie publisher who was hugely successful in their genre. There wasn't a monetary benefit for me. It was all the other things. It was working as a team, turning words around on a deadline, because I write to my own deadlines, right? I don't write to anyone else's deadline. So it was a series of challenges I was putting to myself. But now there is a lot more books coming out. So there's talk of perhaps getting royalties at some point. But at the minute, I've contracted to do 6 books in a co-written post-apocalyptic series, and it will be releasing early next year. So it's going to be a quick turnaround.
Okay.
Awesome.
So the learning process, there's a lot to be said for that. Working with established authors to understand the tropes, have access to the framework within which they work, such as beta readers, proofreaders, editors. I actually have my own editor. So I publish also with LMBPN a lot of books. And I have my own editor. I usually have my own cover designer. So I take care of that. I have my own framework and infrastructure built. But as you're starting out, these are opportunities. but nobody knows until you publish. And this is where, by publishing in that anthology, the Hellcats anthology, 69, I was number 69 on the author list, so I was kind of happy with that, for no reason whatsoever.
There's a reason he likes a steamy group.
Yeah.
Men in bathtubs, I absolutely don't get that, but we digress. By submitting and having material that people can read, because it's so important that people know you can write. Well, I haven't written a book yet, but I want to co-write with you. I still get those. Michael gets those, and I can't tell that you're ever going to write a book, because writing a book is fucking hard. It's not easy. It's not because you're going to hit points. You're going to write that exciting scene that you've been inspired with your whole life. You've been visualizing it. You write it. Then what? You have other scenes, and you have to be that excited about the whole damn book, not just one scene. It's sometimes it's a slog. Sometimes your back hurts and you're still at the chair, and sometimes life gets in the way. You have to work on that, and then you're tired, and it's like, crap, I got to get this chapter done. And also not everybody can tell a great story in writing. Everybody is a storyteller. Every human being, I believe, is a storyteller, because you start from when you're a little kid and mom asks you, how'd that happen? And then you go. It's like, hey, it's the whole world comes up wide open for you, and you're going with the story. It has no relation with reality. But you are a storyteller. However, getting them in writing where they're compelling and the readers just like it, and the flow and the open loops and the sub plots, your overarching plot, the character details, that's not necessarily natural. Even if you read a lot, it's still putting that into your own words. It's a little bit of a challenge. So the best thing you can do for your own career is write and publish. I mean, it may sound crazy, but people aren't going to give you a chance if they haven't seen anything you've written. And this is by Lass going through this stringent Marine Corps style boot camp to get your story in there. Yeah, can you do a 12-hour turnaround without giving us any lip? And that's kind of important, because arguing with people just doesn't. It's not cool. It's a waste of time. It messes up your own words. So the best thing you can do is go through these things, go through these processes, and learn. And what you're learning is why they do these things, because it's a business. Yes, they're your words. You wrote a book. Hey, here's my baby, and that's cool. But you're going to sell that thing. So,
I think part of it too is that
between
go ahead, Rick.
and the publishing, you can have that scene that you've never shown anybody and say, look, this is excellent writing. Here you go. But do you have the commitment, the discipline to see it through to the end? Will you meet a deadline? Will you submit on time? Will you chicken out at the last minute and say, oh no, I can't share my words with the world. What if they're not good enough? Guilty.
George McFly.
I was just going to say that's Erika.
Yeah. So you have to actually be able to show not just that you can write, but that you can follow through. And that follow through is what a co-author is going to be looking for. If you want to go and say, hey, I want to write with you, I want to work with you, it's not good enough to be a good writer, because you have to also be reliable and consistent. And that's where having something published, having met deadlines, having met submission requirements, can stand to you as showing, look, I've got some credibility here. I'm not just another dreamer.
I think too, because 20 books is not about craft. I'm learning that through the anthologies, right? So the Steamy group in particular, Lucy posted her own structure for a short story she had written, because the only short story I'd ever written was for Hellcats. So whenever I was looking at doing the Steamy for 20 books, I had done it right once, but it was a fluke, because I'd just written it for Hellcats and it was an accidental, yes, this works. So Lucy posted her outline, and she helped so many authors in that group figure out how to fit their arc into those 8,000 words without going too far, and making sure the story was complete. And it's the same for working with Kate. I've learned, I'm a pantser, I'm a recovering pantser, and Kate is too, but for this process, we're doing really deep outlining and character sketches and all manner of digging into your character's misbelief. So I'm learning craft and process, whereas in 20 books, the main group, I learn how to do all the other stuff once the button's been pushed. So I think the anthology is benefiting the craft side as well. I'm learning from other people's writing and not just like, here's my story, go and do something with it.
Yeah. And that's important. You got to learn story, and you've got to take that feedback. And I've taken most of my feedback from readers. I have worked with Kate on a couple chapters in my new thriller series, and helped make it better overall. So there's a lot to be said for a good craft coach, and there are quite a few out there. However, getting access to one is extremely challenging. We did post about the Apex group with David Farland. I mean, he's worked with a number of billion-dollar authors. Twilight, Stephanie Meyer. He worked with her. He worked with Brandon Sanderson on story. And what's that?
Harry Potter.
Yeah. Actually, he was working with Scholastic, and he convinced them, you need to pick this book up, and you need to market it. And so they committed their entire budget one year to marketing Harry Potter and the renamed Sorcerer's Stone, because Philosopher's Stone, that didn't do it in America. So, but David Farland was the one to push that. So there are people out there. Getting access to them if you get an opportunity, and it helps if you already have some stories, have some chops, in order to be able to, when people are talking about something, you know what they're talking about. I know when Elaine came to Bali, you had Fade published and a couple other books, or at least one other book published by then, right?
That's right.
But you were still walking around fairly lost, because the conversations were, some of them were extremely high level, with Kevin J. Anderson, with Mark Dawson, with Michael Anderle, and there was a Dakota Kraut was there, and James Hunter, and some million-selling authors. So the conversations were kind of at an advanced level, and now you would be perfectly comfortable, but you have to throw yourself in at some point.
I was fine though, because there was a bar and margaritas.
And Kate had $1 billion rupees. She had stacks of money. Yeah, it was hilarious.
That was brilliant. And Yuda, of course, Yuda was there. He was great to talk to.
Yeah.
I managed to surround myself with people who were okay spending a bit of time talking at my level, so that was quite handy. But it was quite intimidating, and I don't know. I think I'd say that for anyone thinking of shelling out that kind of money to go to an event that's way above their level, really think twice, then 2 more times about it. About what you can realistically hope for. I mean, I managed to talk my husband into it, and saying, you know, like, I'm gonna give this guy my manuscript, and it's a huge gamble, and I'll be honest, I really just wanted to go to Bali.
You guys spent a lot of time at that beach bar, a lot of time.
Oh yeah, networking. That's what
exactly. I'm writing it off. Yeah, there you go.
Don't tell the tax man.
And 20 books. I like touting 20 books, because we're there. There's almost 45,000 members now, and then there's some break off groups where people have said, "Hey, let's talk about this stuff over here," and then we'll come back. Always come back to the main group to talk about the business side and the opportunities. Like, of course, we promoted Sweet and Steamy in the main group. Hey, go over here, join this group, and then learn that stuff over there. So it's under a single umbrella. It's like writing a series. We have this big series, which is 20 books at $50K, and then underneath we have all these other little groups to help folks, and then the conferences, which it was never our intent to do conferences. And they have become so huge in regards to people networking and talking, because yes, we're in the Zoom world now, thanks to COVID-19, but you absolutely cannot be talking with somebody face to face, or at the beach bar at Bali with $1 billion rupees in front of Kate, buying everybody beer, because I can't take it back. One decimal. All we needed was one decimal. Miscalculation. The 20 Books Edinburgh, which I really, really want to do Madrid, but the jury's going to be out. We probably aren't even going to know if we can do Madrid until May. And if we can do it, we will do it. I will set the whole thing up in a month. If we can, if they open up and allow foreigners, us nasty, dirty foreigners in to come to the show. The hotel, we can't even talk to the hotel yet, but the opportunity of people to meet other people and talk. Like last, her computer goes down in the Zoom world. What the hell would that do to you? I'm done. I'm done. And instead, in the hallway, stomping around. Last stomping around is kind of cute. It's not really like Hulk or anything. So then people like, oh, hey, come on, let's talk about this. Let's eat a biscuit, which that's a euphemism for cookies. So let's have a biscuit and some tea, and then have a conversation. You cannot beat a good conversation at a conference. So 20 Books Vegas, Bali. Bali's is going to be awesome. That is such a righteous facility location. And I'm over 100,000 square feet. If we sat theater style in every room that we have available to us, it would hold 9,000 people. So anyway, we're not going to put 9,000 people in there. We're going to cap it about 3,000. We can put 4,000 people in that main room, and that's the expo hall. And then we have all these breakout rooms as well. So it's going to be a show where no matter where you go, you're going to run into another author. You're going to have a lot in common, and you talk with them. Like Lass is talking with so many people on the steamy and sweet side about their stories. I think there's 250 people in one group and 200 in another in the other group. And one thing that Erika and Lass keep doing is talking to people about here's what else. And don't leave the group if your story gets rejected. Stay here, learn, and promote. Because the best thing you can do is participate and engage. Because if you're promoting a good book, and this is when Amazon used to do giveaways on science fiction. So whenever like an Andre Norton or Robert Heinlein book for 99 cents, I'd buy 25 copies and give them away. And just run it on my author page. Hey, everybody, come on over here. I'm giving a book away because this is a cool book that I like. So for 25 books, everybody shared this gem, this treasure, and brought us all closer together. So I've got a good number. I've got 2,500 people on my author page, which of course I turned around for marketing purposes. Hey, do a lookalike audience for these guys because they like the sci-fi that I like. And it opened up a marketing audience on Facebook for 4 million people. So these are the things that happen when you get together, when you talk, when you share, you get in an anthology, you have published books that you can show people. So if, as Michael Anderle says, press the button, he uses the fuck word in there, but press the button. Get your book published because you don't know. Eric on the perfect book. Yeah. Okay. The authors generally are the worst judge of whether their book is good or not. The ones who say my book is crap, usually it's not. Those people who are in love with their book, usually it is crap. So my books that I consider, I have like 3 or 4 that I love. One of them, the fans agree, but I can't sell the damn thing. I just have a hard time getting it in people's hands. And the other ones, they're like my lowest star ratings, their lowest number of reviews, worst sales. And it's like, but I like this book. Yeah, who cares? You're not the audience. So understand. Readers are the judges and the buyers. These are readers who buy stuff. They are the final arbiter of whether your story is good or not. Yeah. Like people bash 50 Shades of Grey all the time. Are you kidding? If I sold 91 million copies, I'd be happy to have written that. I don't care what you say about my literary skill, because you're an entertainer. You're an educator and an entertainer. So keep that in mind. If you entertain with what people like, who cares? Who cares what some art critic says about your goddamn movie? It's hey, look at this, okay? You stay in your apartment, and I'm going to be over here in my mansion on the Mediterranean wallowing in my tears while you're critiquing my book. Yeah. So just that perspective, anyway. So talk to us, everybody here. Give one tip for new authors besides publish your book. Get it out there and then start getting feedback. That's mine. So last, what do you have? One tip for a new author.
Set up your newsletter from the get-go, because I didn't. Sorry, but it's true, because I made the mistake. I published my book before having set up a newsletter, and even a year later, I feel like I'm playing catch up. I feel like I should have done that first. I had my cover fixed. I had my brand sorted with Mary, and I didn't have. I was one of those people who were like, I have nothing to say on my newsletter. Nobody will want to read it. You should just set it up. Set up the onboarding system. Don't be intimidated by the technology, and just do it. Get that done first, because I am still a year later playing catch up on my newsletter.
And Erika wrote a book for Mailer Lite that goes into the whys and wherefores. Tamula Breck wrote Newsletter Ninja, another great book for setting up your newsletter. It goes into the whys, the wherefores, and then the physical steps for setting one up. I did not have a newsletter when I first published my first book or my first three. And then, if nothing else, even if you don't have readers and subscribers, still have it set up so it's in your back matter to find people later. Mark Dawson mentioned this as one of his major errors when he published his first big book, and it went huge. Bye, Erika. Bye. And it went his first big book, and it went huge. He didn't have anything in his back matter by which to reconnect with those readers. So he's like, I sold 100,000 copies of those, and the readers didn't know where to find me. So lost all that access. Now he recovered nicely, I think, but it's important.
Okay, Erika.
Oh boy,
You're killing me. You're killing me. So if nothing else, have a place for them to say, hey, I like this book. I like this author. Let me sign their newsletter list and sign up for their newsletter so I can know when the next book is out. Keep that hook. So once you set that hook, keep it set. Keep the drag on and reel them in. Elaine, what's your tip?
be consistent in all things is definitely my number one, and I only learned it recently as well, which is shocking. But my writing has improved since I've consistently written every day. I consistently give a certain amount of time to different things that need doing, like the newsletters and all the other bits of marketing and stuff, and my accounts. Consistency is huge. It's a win, big win.
What's your one tip?
Don't spend money on crap. I spent so much money on things I didn't need to do, to things, organizations I didn't need to join, products I didn't need to buy. I was like Kate in Bali.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, sorry.
Only not
That's
with
true,
rupees.
but that's important.
The buying things. As I tell people, only learn what you need to know when you need to know it. There's people who think, geez, there's so much to public. Yes, there is. I've got 5 years, 15,000 hours in this business, and I hardly know anything, I would say. Sure, I can tell a tale. I can hit publish. I know what keywords are fairly good, but you will never know it all. That's my point. Never. So trying to say, well, geez, I'm not ready to publish yet because I don't know it all. Well, guess what? Then you'll never publish. Erika, what's your tip?
So Mailer Lite and newsletters is my big thing, but I think knowing your genre, knowing your tropes. You don't have to write to market, but you do have to know your market. And that might be just because you read a whole lot of books in it, and that's why you're writing in it, because you love it. But what's different about your book? Now, that can be your unique hook. It can also be the thing that throws people out of your story if they're expecting things to go one way and actually it's not. So if you write this amazing romance story, but at the end the couple break up and they go their separate ways, and it's Casablanca, it's a bittersweet tale, it's beautiful. Yeah, it's not a romance, And if you tell people it's a romance, you're going to get slaughtered. If you tell people it's women's fiction, a heartwarming tale of blah, blah, you will have the same people will read it. They will still love it because they're expecting what you're willing to give them. And you need to have that, don't have a disconnect between what your audience is looking for and what you're giving. One of the things I find in my fairy tales is that all the traditional fairy tales are the princess waits in the tower for the prince to come and rescue her. And I kind of flip that on its head. So I've made a point of saying in my blurbs, you know, this is about princesses who won't wait around to be rescued. Now, if you're waiting for a traditional fairy tale, don't read my book. It's not.
Bye, Erika. All right, to make sure the trope is you're in line with the tropes, and this is where I love me some Elena Johnson. One thing that she did was she was going to get into Western romance. She read every single Western romance that was available at the time before writing. She took notes, she studied the tropes, and when she jumped in with both feet, hog wild. Now she is #1 in that genre, and was, I think, after the second or third book, because she hit everything that people were expecting to see. So when you see an Elena Johnson Western romance book, it is Western romance every 100%, and it will deliver. So there's, and this is in the business of self-publishing, you can do all the tips, tricks, hints, hacks, everything you need to sell that first book. But if the first book isn't good, you'll never sell that second book. So we can't harp on, because people, the quality over quantity debate, you can't write 12 good books a year. Fuck you. Yes, you can. You can write 12 great books in a year. Now, but you have to learn your craft. It took me a long time to be able to write that many great books. And in my mind, they're great. Hey, but you have to write a compelling story. It just has to be good enough. It can't be something that really turns a reader off. Killing a dog, don't do that. Certain things that don't go, unless you're John Wick. You kill my dog, I'm going to kill all of you. Hey, yeah, that's what we want, retribution. So way to go, John Wick. The craft, and this is one thing, we assume that you're working on craft, that you've studied some craft, that you've read in your genre. So when you come over to 20 books at $50K to start learning the business of self-publishing, it's that you can write a compelling story that's good enough, and readers will cut you a lot of slack. One of my the readers consider one of their favorite series, my Free Trader, which was my second and third book that I ever wrote. And I'm looking at those, I'm like, man, they're kind of rough reading, but people love them because they're like, hey, I like how you evolved as a writer over the years. And so they give you the benefit of the doubt for your first few books. So use that, just tell a great story, a good enough story in a great way, make it your own, take your own voice, and move forward. So don't be paralyzed by, geez, I don't write like Anne McCaffrey. After I wrote my first science fiction book, I looked at it, I'm like, geez, this isn't like Anne McCaffrey. Well, no kidding. Don't put yourself under those kinds of strains. And I saw a great meme about, don't compare your today game, your first day on the court game, to Michael Jordan's last day on the court game. You cannot compare, because how many thousands of hours of practice have you put in? And people are like, well, I'm not selling my book. I wrote one book and it's not selling. What kind of professionals you go into a business? Anything that requires a degree, guess what? You went to school for 4 years to get your degree to then be able to do this job. And how do you expect to get into writing? Well, I've read my whole life. That's great. I was a passenger the whole time I was a kid. But when I turned 16, guess what? When you put me behind the wheel, it was a whole new ball game. So this is, yes, you read a lot, take those lessons, but you know what? I wasn't watching Dad pressing the gas or brake pedal. And when I first started driving, I had absolutely no idea how to get around my own town. And it was the only place I ever lived. Same house, born and raised till I was 18. And I had no idea how to get around my own town when I was behind the wheel. So just understand that your first book, just accept that it's going to suck, but it's okay. The next one, you can suck less. And that's a life lesson there. Every day should be about sucking less than the day before. Was that too
I'm
harsh?
writing that down. No, I'm putting it on a post-it. One of my post-its from your indie author series, it says, "Is your book good enough?" And that's on my wall. That's one of the things. So now I'm going to write "suck less" every day on another one.
You're going to suck, but just make it less than yesterday.
See, if we had this conversation in the Steamy group, it would go in a whole other direction.
Conversations. I don't think I'm a creepy old dude. I'm happily married. I'm not a creepy old dude. But some of that shit is really weird. Like naked men on two-humped camels.
So, Craig, there was a question further up in the chat about learning more about the anthology opportunities. So perhaps you could just give a shout out of what the upcoming dates are and let people know.
Okay, what we have right now, we have the Sweet Anthology, which the first 500 words has already passed. Mm-hmm. The Steamy Anthology is the first 500 words. Last of those are due on November 30th, I believe. Mm-hmm. The Thriller Anthology, the first 500 words are due by December 31st. UF, Urban Fantasy, and Keener, Paranormal Romance dates. We'll come up with them in the spring, but we're looking to publish on, I think, the solstice, June 21, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm doing through IASFA, which is an organization I run, the Independent Alliance of Science Fiction and Fantasy Authors. I'm running a book bundle via BookFunnel, full books, in mid-March. And I do have an application up, but you got to be a member of IASFA, IASFA.org. In order to participate in those, you have to have something published in science fiction and fantasy. Hellhounds called. That's with Kate. Working with Kate. It's not official 20 books, just like the science fiction and fantasy book bundles are not. But those opportunities, I think I put a post. If you search for opportunity, or is it opportunities? What did I put in the title? One of those. We'll find it and we'll post it in this thread for opportunities of what's available, because I think I listed everything in there. All right. It's been almost 60 minutes, about 31 for Erika. What kind of closing words do you want to leave with our folks?
Competition.
Last.
Competition winners. Aren't we doing those?
I have that list in front of me and my other computer shut down. Hang on. Hang on. I'm going there now. I got a message from Mark Dawson. I should answer that. Come on.
You want to list?
So yes, competition winners. We have 10 better backstories. And I'll announce your name. We'll publish the list. And, of course, it's not coming up. Elaine, would you do me the favor of reading that list, please? Because my shit ain't tight here. It's looking kind of grim.
Okay. I closed everything to do this. So I'm just going to open it back up.
We're going to give 10.
Here we go. Free write contest.
So
okay. Right. So
we're going to mail those. So read out the card winners first.
Card winners are Crystal Ferry, Tiffany Conan Morales. I apologize if I destroy anyone's name here. William Springer, DJ Ruggiero, sorry, Mercedes Rose, Ines Johnson. Oh, wow. Jess Malalepsy. And I know Jess as well, I think. I'm pretty certain I know who she is. Sorry, Jess. J.A. Clement, Mandy Jane Jackson, and John Howard.
There we go. We're going to, I think most of those are in the U.S. I think a few are in the U.K., Europe area. So we'll ship the ones to Europe to Elaine, and hopefully transship them to the others. because shipping everyone individually would be kind of grim. And the Free Write Traveler, not this guy, this is mine, but this guy, it's actually, it takes a little bit to get used to, but you see, it is about writing. You just start and you write, and then you can export. You can't import jack shit into it. That's what I found out. But so it's for, hey, I just want to sit down. I want to write this story, and I want to write this chapter. You just sit down. You have a blank page. You write. There are zero distractions. It's a really easy to see screen with some lighting, so it's not backlit. And this is all to extend the battery life. The battery life on this thing, I think, is 2 weeks. So 2 weeks, like 20, 40 hours of typing, it's going to keep all of your stuff. So then you can either hook it up or Wi-Fi it to then download the file or files that you worked on, and it's cool. It works. So the Free Write, I bought 2. I'll probably give this one away too, because I have this guy, which is it's the dual Z Fold phone, which is the screen seamless on the Fold. Yes, it is beyond cool. It was that with the super cool watch that also does blood pressure, oxygen, and all that. That was $2,500. Don't buy those expensive toys because it's a toy. But that with where's my keyboard? Look at that with a little Bluetooth keyboard worked much better because it has access to Dropbox, and I can get in everything as well as Facebook. So yeah, I have distractions on it, but it's okay. Anyway, the Free Write Traveler, I do have the name up now, is going to go to Tina Maxwell Smith. Congratulations, Tina. I'll be sending you a message and getting your address. We'll get addresses for everybody on this list here in order to get your card shipped off, as well as get that Free Write shipped off to you in the U.S. For Tina. Thank you all. Any final words from our august panelists today? Start with Erika, because she's still here right now.
Sorry, that makes me to leave. Don't be afraid to try and get out of your own way. Imposter syndrome is real, and it can feel like it's impossible to go forward. Find the people who are where you are or a little bit ahead, and reach out to people. Find your tribe. Having people who can help and who can commiserate without turning it into a downward spiral. That's what you need in your corner, because you can do it. You just have to believe in yourself.
Good words there. Good words. Elaine.
I would say, please, for the love of God and the love of the admins, search before asking.
Everybody here is an admin on the 20 books of 50 pages also. Yeah, that's personal for us. Lass, what do you have?
So set goals and say them out loud. Because when I was in Edinburgh, I was terrified. Like, I was completely paralyzed by fear about everything, right? And I had messaged Craig privately, and I was like, I don't know if I'm at the level I need to be to go to this. And he said, this is your tribe. You just don't know it yet. And at Edinburgh, I said out loud, and I really was partially only joking, but part of it was like an actual dream. I said, I want to be a 20 books panelist someday, right? I want to be on a panel talking to people about something I've learned that I can give back to them, like these people are sitting up there. And I'm not there yet, but I will be one day. I will be asked by Craig to sit on a panel. And look, I'm on this interview now. I'm now a 20 books admin. I am steps ahead of where I was in Edinburgh last year. But set goals, voice them out loud to people so you're held accountable, and then work like hell to make them happen.
And I asked you all here because I saw how far you have all come on your journeys in a relatively short amount of time. Last year, when at Edinburgh, you sat across from me and you didn't have anything published yet, and it was and Erika, I've known her for 3 years now, and had never had anything. I'm getting it. I'd ask, come on, when are you going to publish? I mean, I kind of dogged her hard for that. When are you going to publish? And Elaine, hey, when are you going to publish your next book? And but you guys are there. You've learned a lot of great lessons. You know what you're capable of. I think that's the biggest thing. And you know that readers like your shit. And that is a cool feeling. So that there's nothing beats that besides a few extra nickels in the bank. Those are cool too. So it's the big win. The big win. The fans like my stuff. I don't, but who cares? Who cares what you think? As long as your fans like it, that's what matters. And they're willing to pay for it because this is a business. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. You have a great day, and we will see you next time. I have no idea when we'll do a next one. We'll get Michael on, and we'll talk about innocuous things that relate to publishing, kind of, maybe. Everybody have a great day now. Thank you.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you guys for coming on the show.
Bye.